Hey, what's up everybody? It's Spencer and welcome back to my shop. Today we're going to be taking another look at my Z50R. It's been a little while and I've kind of been radio silent while I was recovering from my surgery, but I wanted to thank everybody that reached out and checked on me. I really appreciate that. It means a lot to me. We'll get started on a titanium exhaust for it. Now that we've got the engine back in the frame, I'm ready to start on the exhaust. What I did was take a piece of 2 3/4 CP1 titanium tube from Tycon Industries and I cut it off to about 7.5 inches. Checking my clearances here and everything and finding out like forward and back where I think I wanted to go. Also how close to the frame. For now, that's a good start. I need to work on the end caps now and the mount for it as well to hang it back there. I've got both end caps cut out now. I'll show you a picture of my sketchy setup up there. I wouldn't recommend doing it this way. It probably wasn't the safest thing in the world, but it did work out okay. So now that I have both of them done, I've brushed them off with Scotch-Brite and cleaned them up. What I did for the portion that's supposed to slip into the muffler with the end cap was I took a thin slice of this 2 3/4 inch titanium tubing and then I cut a slot right there and I kept trimming away about a width of a cutting wheel at a time with my angle grinder until I got it to where I could collapse it and then put it inside of the muffler. So it does fit in there. Just like so, and then I will weld the end cap to it with the piece of tubing that I have to machine to fit the baffling in there, and then I will drill some holes and weld some nuts on there for it to bolt up. Now that I have all of my individual pieces done, as you saw me just make, I made the slip joint side of my muffler. This will have an end cap welded to it, like so, just like that. And this will be the side that's welded solid to the muffler body. And this will be the slip joint where the header slides into it, and there'll be a spring loop top and bottom on it to hold it together. Just in case I don't like this muffler or I smash the header or whatever, it's easy for me to take it apart and I don't ruin the whole system that way. And I don't have to cut apart the entire system to fix something. I also machined this side here. This is to hold the baffling. This is just the other side that's going to be on the removable end cap. I turned myself a shoulder here to go through the end cap, and I will weld tubing onto it later to wrap around the shock, so I'm not blasting the shock with exhaust. So now we can finally start doing some welding. Titanium is very, very critical when you're welding it. It's an easy material to weld, but you have to be extremely clean when you're messing with it. So I'll continue to wipe everything down with acetone. I'll be wearing nitrile gloves on my hands the entire time. I have to have it back purged with argon the entire time. So I made a tool to do the brackets and all of that fun stuff. And it's just on a magnetic starret arm for dial indicators. And I used an old torch head and cut the argon tube and soldered on a 1/4 inch barb on there to fit my back purge hose. And I'm using a Furic FUPA 12 cup to shield the backside of like my brackets. And this is nice because it's easily adjustable. You know, I can move it around and twist this however I need to. to get back behind something so that, both of my hands are free to weld. But, I didn't come up with this idea on my own. I saw something similar on Instagram a long time ago, and I just scrounged around the house until I found some stuff to make one out of. But, welding titanium is kind of a pain, but it's really rewarding when you get it done and it's done right. So make sure you keep it shielded. Now that the muffler body is complete, I've got the baffling in there and everything is completely together. I have to make the brackets to actually mount it to the frame. So I'm going to take off the rear fender and number plate assembly, and I'm going to measure the shock in its extended state like it is right now, and then subtract the amount of travel that it has. And I'm gonna raise the swing arm without the shocks on there to check where I believe I'm gonna mount this. I wanna make sure that there's no chance for any kind of interference with the rear tire. I also wanna give myself a little bit of extra room just because I might not end up running these rear shocks. I have some other ones laying around that I might wanna try down the road. So I do wanna give myself as much leniency with clearance as possible. So I've got this thing held up with some safety wire on the left shock. Mounts just to the correct length. Actually a little bit further than I needed to go, just like I said, just in case I don't end up running these shocks and I end up using something with a little bit different travel. I brought the rear tire up pretty close to the frame there. And I've just been holding this up and kind of mocking up what I think the mount should be. I've made some marks on the frame on where the muffler should sit height-wise, and then the distance, going forward on the frame, kind of where it needs to be. And then I've rigged up a mount out of some bushings that I had laying around. So I used Fusion 360 and I just made myself a paper cutout. I just cut it out with a pair of scissors at a 1:1 scale for what I wanted and traced it with a Sharpie onto a piece of titanium sheet that I have that's 40 thousandths thick. I'm doing 2 of them because I really need it to be about 80 thousandths thick when it's done. So I'm just gonna cut out 2 of them and weld them together, and it should be fine for what I'm doing. So I start off with a center drill here just to make a little pilot hole before changing over to a step drill to punch the final dimension that I need through it for a rubber grommet to fit in there. I like the step drill because it can be kind of tough to drill titanium, and that allows it to step up pretty smoothly, and they work good for that. Then I just countersink the holes and make sure that there's no burrs on it to snag that grommet before I rough out the profile with the bandsaw. Then I can take it over to my disc sander and finish up the outside profile. made a silly mistake. I didn't account for how thick these aluminum bushings are, like width-wise. With an inch of spacers in there, they hit the plastics. And after shortening it up and putting less spacers in there, then I couldn't get the clearance that I needed right there on the frame for the muffler. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna move this mount further back. Now I have plenty of room, as you can see, not anywhere close to the plastics. This is why I wait to powder coat frames and do all the vanity stuff last, is you run into little issues like this and you gotta fix them somehow. So we're gonna do a little bit of welding on this frame. Crisis averted. I machined a threaded insert that I welded into the frame right here instead of up here as it was originally. And then I was able to move the exhaust mount back and get the clearance that I needed on my plastics and avoid from having to make a new mount, because I really like the way that this one turned out and I didn't want to have to do anything crazy to make it fit. So now that that's all welded up, the muffler is done and we can move on to the header next time. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I've never made a muffler before, and I've definitely never made one out of titanium. So being relatively new to welding titanium, I think this turned out okay. If there's any information you guys want to know on how I approached this and why I did things the way that I did, I'd be glad to answer them in the comments. If you like my videos, I'd appreciate it if you'd subscribe and check out my other videos too. Like I said, on the next one, we'll build a header for this thing and then we'll be done with the exhaust, and that's one more big step in the right direction. Thanks for watching.